Have you ever felt a kind of tiredness that no sleep can fix? Not physical fatigue, not the kind that goes away after a weekend off or a few hours in bed. I'm talking about a deeper kind of exhaustion, one that clings to your bones, one that greets you in the morning before you even open your eyes. It whispers something's off, but never tells you what. You try everything: sleep more, work less, meditate, travel, escape, but nothing works. You wake up, and the heaviness is still there. You go through your day, and it follows you like a silent fog. Now listen closely, because this isn't random. This exhaustion is not weakness, it's not laziness, and it's not something to push through. What if I told you your fatigue might be a message from God? Yes, you heard me. What if this quiet burnout isn't something to resist, but something to decode? Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. We've heard this verse so many times that it's easy to dismiss it as just a poetic phrase. But what if it's more than that? What if it's a key, a spiritual code hidden in plain sight, a divine pattern used by God again and again when words aren't enough? This video is for the ones who are tired and don't know why, for the ones who feel off but can't name it, for the ones who've done everything right and still feel empty. If that's you, stay with me till the end, because what you'll hear might just rewire everything you thought about purpose, pain, and the reason you feel so lost. See, when God wants to speak to you, He doesn't always use visions. He doesn't always send thunder. Sometimes He uses the one thing you can't ignore: your body. The body carries the soul, and the soul carries the mission. And when the mission is neglected, the body starts to shut down. You can pretend you're fine. You can smile through your deadlines. You can bury your truth in to-do lists and fake peace. But your body will keep the score, and one day, it will force you to listen. This kind of fatigue is sacred. It's not the kind you get from working too hard. It's the kind you get from living against your calling, from saying yes when you were meant to say no, from forcing doors God already shut. It's the weariness of someone walking the wrong path, beautifully, efficiently, relentlessly, in the wrong direction. Let me ask you, what if your tiredness is God slamming the brakes before you drive off a cliff? What if your exhaustion isn't your enemy, but your deliverer? What if that heaviness in your soul is the most loving warning you'll ever receive? In the Bible, this pattern repeats itself again and again. When a person drifts from their purpose, their body breaks down, their spirit loses strength, their fire goes dim. Take the prophet Elijah. After calling fire from heaven, after standing in God's power, he ran into fear, ran into burnout. He collapsed under a tree and whispered, "It's enough, Lord. Take my life." A man chosen by God, ready to quit, crushed not by enemies but by internal weight. That story wasn't about failure. It was about redirection. That exhaustion wasn't the end, it was the turning point. Elijah wasn't dying. He was being recalled, realigned. You see, fatigue is often the soul's final whisper. You're not where you're supposed to be. You're not who you're supposed to become. And if you don't stop willingly, your body will make you stop. This is the moment when tiredness becomes grace. Modern life tells us to hustle, to push harder, to smile through the pain. But God waits in the pause. In quietness and trust is your strength. The world will tell you you're falling behind, but God will use your fatigue to bring you home. So pause, breathe, feel the weight you've been dragging behind you, and ask yourself honestly, do I still need to carry this? You ever notice how the exhaustion always shows up after you've forced yourself to keep going? Not right away, not in the moment of crisis, but after the deadlines, after the pretending, after the mask you wear finally cracks from the inside out. You've trained yourself to push, to show up, to man up, to not break. And now, you can't feel anything but numb. That numbness, that isn't strength. That's your nervous system waving the white flag. You weren't meant to live like this. We live in a culture that glorifies burnout. You're rewarded for abandoning yourself. The more exhausted you are, the more dedicated you look. The more sleep you sacrifice, the more committed you seem. The more pain you ignore, the more respect you earn. And the whole time, you're dying quietly. No one sees it until it's too late. But guess what? God sees it. He sees the smile that doesn't reach your eyes. He sees the way your hands shake when you think no one's watching. He hears the silence in your chest where your passion used to live. And still, you keep showing up, keep pushing, keep pretending that I'm fine isn't a lie. But that's the problem. You've become so good at performing, you forgot how to feel. Here's the deeper truth. Burnout is not the end of energy. It's the end of alignment. The body isn't giving out because it's weak. It's breaking down because it's tired of lying, tired of pretending to care, tired of proving things to people who were never watching, tired of chasing things that never fed your soul. Fatigue is the signal, but the real wound is deeper. The real wound is disconnection from God, from meaning, from the part of you that knows why you're here. Carl Jung said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." And he was right. You'll sacrifice your health to avoid silence. You'll numb your mind with work, with women, with distractions, anything but stillness. Because stillness is where the truth lives. And truth asks for change. But here's what no one tells you. There is nothing wrong with you. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are not lazy or behind. You are just tired of betraying yourself. And that tiredness is a holy thing. It's sacred because it's honest. It's sacred because it breaks your illusions. The illusion that you have to prove your worth. The illusion that love must be earned. The illusion that rest is for the weak. Let me ask you something painful. When was the last time you sat in stillness, and didn't feel guilt? When was the last time you allowed yourself to do nothing and didn't call it lazy? When did your soul become a machine? You weren't born for this. You weren't born to survive your own life. You were born to create, to love, to feel, to be moved. But somewhere along the way, you forgot. You stopped asking if the life you built was even yours. And now the weight of it is catching up, not to punish you, but to awaken you. This is where you're called to choose. Will you keep performing the life you think you're supposed to live? Or will you finally surrender and live the one you're meant for? This isn't a motivational video. This is a warning, a whisper before the collapse, because the longer you ignore the voice inside, the louder it gets. Until eventually, it doesn't whisper anymore. It roars, in illness, in breakdown, in consequences you didn't see coming, but your soul did. But here's the good news. You can turn around, you can pause, you can ask hard questions, you can listen. You don't need to crash to wake up. You just need to stop lying. Stop lying about what hurts. Stop lying about what you want. Stop lying about what you've become. Because God can't bless who you're pretending to be. He can only bless the real you. And maybe that's the scariest part. The stillness, the unknown, the you behind the masks. But that's also where the healing starts, and once it starts, everything changes, not all at once, not like a movie, but slowly, subtly, sacredly, until one day you wake up and you don't feel tired anymore, not because you slept longer, but because you came home to yourself. You think your exhaustion is a weakness. It's not. It's a message, not from your mind, not from society, not even from your schedule, but from your soul, your body. That ancient animal you live inside speaks a language older than thought. It doesn't care about your productivity. It doesn't care about your ambitions. It doesn't care how much money you make or how many goals you tick off. It cares about truth, and when you lie, even silently, it keeps score. Every time you say yes when you mean no, every time you stay where your spirit is shrinking, every time you perform instead of feel, your body whispers, "This isn't right." Ignore it long enough, it doesn't whisper anymore. It screams. That headache that never leaves, that fatigue you can't shake, that fog in your mind that no coffee can cut. These aren't malfunctions, they're alarms. Alarms that the way you're living in is too small for who you really are. Carl Jung didn't call this burnout. He called it the loss of soul. The moment a man loses connection to his depth, his truth, his inner knowing, he begins to rot from the inside out, not dramatically, not loudly, but slowly, like a building eaten from within by termites. Until one day you collapse, and don't know why. But let me tell you something very few men ever realize. Your energy is sacred, and what drains it is just as important as what restores it. Start watching, pay attention, notice what leaves you empty. Is it the job you secretly hate? The conversations that feel like masks talking to masks? The constant need to prove you're okay? Every time you betray yourself, you leak life force. Every time you hide your pain, you burn energy keeping the mask on. And every time you avoid your truth, you teach your nervous system that safety equals silence. But your soul was not built for silence. You want to feel alive again? Then you have to stop managing your exhaustion and start listening to it. Ask, where am I lying? Where am I pretending this is enough? Where did I trade peace for performance? And be ready, because the answers, they'll ruin your illusions, but they'll save your life. There's a reason God allows fatigue to feel so heavy, because it's the one thing you can't fake your way through. You can fake a smile. You can fake competence. You can even fake passion, but you can't fake vitality. And when it's gone, your soul is calling, not for rest, not for a break, but for truth. So what do? You stop asking, how do I get my energy back? And start asking, what am I doing that's killing it? Because maybe it's not the hours you work, but the meaninglessness behind them. Maybe it's not the people around you, but the version of you you become when they're near. Maybe it's not burnout, but a crisis of honesty. You're not tired because you do too much. You're tired because you forgot why any of it matters. Carl Jung wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And that's why most men never heal. They treat the symptoms, they take supplements, follow morning routines, grind harder, but never stop to ask, what part of me have I abandoned just to feel safe? That part, the abandoned self, is where your energy went, and until you go back and claim him, you'll keep running on empty. So what now? Do what you've been avoiding. Pause, feel, grieve. Say the thing you've swallowed for years. Ask the question you're afraid to know the answer to. Look in the mirror and see the man behind the mask. He doesn't want perfection, he wants presence. And when you give it to him, when you stop performing and start listening, something miraculous happens. The energy returns, not because you pushed harder, but because you stopped betraying the part of you that's been asking for your attention all along. By the time your mind admits there's a problem, your body's already known for years. But here's the lie we've all inherited. Power means pushing through. Push through the tired, push through the ache, push through the voice in your chest that quietly begs you to stop. But power without listening, that's not strength. That's self-abandonment. And the world loves a man who abandons himself. He's easy to control, easy to manipulate, easy to sell dreams to, because he's too disconnected from his own to notice. They call him high performer. They clap for his resilience. They reward him for burning the candle down to nothing. But at what cost? A life of achievement, with no fulfillment, a schedule full of meetings, and a soul full of silence, a reputation for being reliable, while you don't even recognize yourself in the mirror. That's not purpose, that's possession. Carl Jung saw this before we had words for burnout or nervous system dysregulation. He called it identification with the persona. The moment your outer role, your job, your status, your image becomes more real than your inner self. And the price, you lose the ability to feel, not just pain, but joy, curiosity, depth, the quiet pulse of being alive. So the body steps in, it speaks in symptoms, first a whisper, "You're not okay." Then a push, "You can't live like this." Then a collapse. If you won't choose truth, your body will choose it for you. Here's the brutal beauty of the human system. It won't let you lie forever. Eventually, the signals become too loud. Insomnia, panic attacks, numbness, random bursts of rage or tears, not because you're broken, but because you're full of unsaid words, unfelt grief, unlived years. Your body is not malfunctioning, it's breaking the illusion. So what's the illusion? That you can live disconnected from yourself and still thrive. That you can run on empty and still give love. That you can suppress your truth and keep your soul intact. You can't. And the fatigue is your proof. It's not a flaw, it's feedback. A sacred signal that something deeper needs to change. Not a vacation, not a new supplement, not another productivity hack. A reckoning. Ask yourself, where am I still performing for approval? Who am I trying to impress by pretending I'm fine? What truth am I scared to admit because it would change everything? This is the edge, right here. The moment most men flinch, they'd rather keep chasing the next solution than stop and feel the cost of who they've become. But not you. You're still reading, which means something in you is done. Done with the mask. Done with the chase, done with calling burnout normal. You're not broken, you're awakening. Let me leave you with this. Jung wrote, "What you resist not only persists but will grow in size." You can resist the fatigue, fight the symptoms, try to outsmart the signals, but the more you push, the more it pulls until life itself forces you into stillness. So what if you chose stillness before it chooses you? What if you stopped seeing your body as the enemy and started treating it like the prophet it is? Because when you finally listen, that's when the healing begins. That's when you remember. You were never weak for being tired. You were tired from being inauthentic. And authenticity, that's where your real power lives. There comes a moment in a man's life when he can no longer distract himself. Not with work. Not with sex, not with ambition, caffeine, or new beginnings. He sits in silence, and for the first time he feels it. The ache, not of something missing out there, but of something abandoned in here. It's not depression, it's not laziness, it's not a lack of drive. It's grief. Grief for the parts of himself he betrayed just to survive. Carl Jung called it the descent into the underworld, not a metaphor, a real psychic event, the death of the false self and the slow, brutal return to what's real. The masks fall, the stories crumble, and all that's left is a man staring at the mirror, wondering who he actually is when there's no one left to impress. This moment is sacred. It feels like collapse, but it's actually rebirth. It feels like failure, but it's the start of remembering. Because the real you, he never died. He was buried under all the roles you had to play to be loved. Under the armor you built just to feel safe. Under the shame you inherited from a world that fears emotion. But now, he's stirring. And if you're brave enough to keep going, not upward but inward, you'll meet him. But here's the truth no one tells you. Healing doesn't feel like light. It feels like fire. It burns through your illusions. It strips away your justifications. It melts the scaffolding of who you thought you had to be. And in that space, You'll face everything you avoided for years. The sadness you laughed away, the anger you swallowed, the fears you hid behind perfection. You'll shake, you'll cry, you'll rage, and still, you'll live. Because for the first time, you're not running from yourself. You're returning to yourself. This is what Jung meant by integration. Not a spiritual idea, not a self-help slogan, but the lived process of reclaiming every lost piece of who you are. Not just the light, but the shadow. Not just the wisdom, but the wound. Not just the love, but the loneliness. All of it, held, met, owned, because when you stop exiling your darkness, something incredible happens. You become whole, and wholeness. That's where your peace lives. Not in perfection, not in hustle, not in fixing yourself, but in finally telling the truth. And what is that truth? That you are not a machine. You're not a role, not a title, not a projection of who people need you to be. You are a soul, alive, messy, wounded, sacred. You were not made to be a symbol of success. You were made to feel, to create, to break, to love, to begin again. And no amount of performance will ever replace presence. So here's your invitation. Let the fatigue be your teacher. Let the ache become your guide. Let the collapse open the door to your own resurrection. This is not your end. It's your homecoming. Back to the boy who wanted to be seen. Back to the man who longed to be real. Back to the soul that waited for you. Even when you forgot he existed, you don't have to abandon yourself anymore. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. You don't have to keep carrying the weight of a life that never felt like yours. You're allowed to begin again, not as a better version, but as a true one, because at the edge of your exhaustion, beneath the rubble of your false identities, after the ego burns and the stories collapse, there is a man, silent, present, free, and he doesn't need applause, he doesn't need approval, he doesn't even need to be understood, he just is whole, unshakable, home. That's you, that's the soul you forgot you had, and now you remember.